Hey everybody, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and today I'm going to talk about the Burson Audio Conductor 3X GT. This is a very high-end amp DAC. It has a base price of $3,000 as reviewed for my video, but they also sell a deluxe package, which is $300 more. Comes with an upgraded power supply, their supercharger, which I've reviewed separately in the past, and it comes with a metal stand so you can, flip this vertically. So why am I reviewing it? One, I've covered Burson audio products in the past. They have a very unique sound profile to me. They kind of go with their own direction, which is nice because a lot of amp DACs tend to sound the same, and you're really just paying for the different design feature set that you may want, and anything past that, you might get diminishing returns. However, at every price point, I have heard an audible difference with the Burson amps. Now, whether that's your flavor or not, at least it's different. And a lot of amp DACs, like I said, don't even do that. So yes, this is expensive. Now there's a couple crazy things about this, and I know a lot of you watch my channel because I cover gaming stuff as well. This is probably the most expensive amp DAC I've ever held in my possession or reviewed that has a combo port in the front. Yes, this $3,000 unit actually has mic pass-through to work as a headphone or headset amp DAC for gaming on your PC or conference calls, which is pretty crazy. Now, I don't know of too many gaming headsets that command a $3,000 amp DAC. This is the only one I really used it on, the VCR Model 1, and I'll talk about the way that pairs and why that was kind of a fun setup. So it's pretty unique, and yeah, we're going to get into all that. So just to do the housekeeping bit, this was sent to me for review by Burson Audio. I did not purchase this. It won't affect what I say about it, and I don't have any special affiliate links set up with Burson. I get no special kickbacks from them for any part of this review. If I post links in the description, it's either going to be generic Amazon links or directly to the manufacturer website. I don't typically do affiliate and marketing stuff. Won't affect what I say either way, but I want to fully disclose that. And as always, if you like what you see after watching this or beforehand, don't forget to like and subscribe because I'd love to see it in a future video. So let's talk about what's included. Now I'll grab the power supply underneath here when I do the when I talk about power consumption. It comes with a standard switching power supply, a really nice quality but short USB-C to C cable. If you are using this in a desktop environment and your tower is off to the side, frankly, this cable is too short. Now, if you're connecting this to a MacBook or a compatible Android device, for example, then it'll work absolutely fine. But I found that I couldn't use this for my setup because I like to run my wires a certain way. It also comes with a remote. Now, the remote's very simple. You have a mute button, an input button, and then volume up and down. Now, the remote's cool. I like that it's clean, and frankly, that's all most people want is to change the source and volume. I wish they put again, this is just after using it for a long time, little things that stood out. There's no like anti-rattle felt or anything like that underneath the buttons, and when it's metal on metal, you can hear a little bit of a rattle. Now that's literally just the buttons. It's not like it's built poorly inside. In fact, it feels really premium in hand, but when you shake it, it has a little bit of a rattle to it. Now I want to show you the back of the unit, and then I'll flip it around to show you the front because there's a few things I want to show you on settings. So you have your power input, of course. Now I did mention it comes with the switching power supply, 12-volt triggers in and an output, so you can use this to help control other amps in your setup in case you're using this as like a preamp, for example. You have a Bluetooth antenna, which is removable, and it's not one of those ones where once it's secure, you can just spin it. You basically have to loosen it, and then you can adjust the nut to kind of get close to tight. And once it's there, turn this all the way. And now it's going to be in the upright position. And if you just turn it, this is just a little bit loose, so you can just kind of, tighten it back up. You have optical in and coaxial input, which is 24-bit, 192 kilohertz only. It does not go past that. And then you have several inputs. So you have two analogs. Now, obviously, you can see I've used some of these. The bottom two are your standard RCA ins. Then the top ones are XLR. You can pick all of these separately. So even though they look like it's a shared bank, obviously balanced versus unbalanced. It's not shared in any way. And the DAC interface allows you to choose all of these. There's tons of inputs you can select. So you can connect quite a bit to it. Now you have an XLR balanced output if you want to use this as just a DAC. Or let's say you're using this as a headphone amp DAC, but then you have a more powerful speaker amplifier. you can use this to connect to your speaker amplifier, and then you have RCA out. And you have a subwoofer out. This is one of the craziest party tricks I've seen in a while. So on the settings, you can actually select to have a sub output plus headphone, which means, and some people have done this without having a direct supported feature in the amp DAC itself. So being able to do that is really fun. I have multiple SVS subs and I definitely had a good time with that. It's a bit of a different experience. It's really better suited for like low frequencies only, like below 40 hertz in my opinion, if you want more of that visceral feeling. But you can obviously screw around with it. Now, if you do use a sub, and with the way new subs are nowadays, I really recommend getting one with a parametric EQ filter, not just a knob on the back to change the bass, because then you can really dial in the sound characteristics to marry up better to what you have. So let's plug this in and we'll go through the front. All right, so I just plugged it in and turned it on. And for you PC folks out there, you will see that, yes, there is a brown Noctua fan on the chassis. It's audible. Now, there's a reason why. Listen to that. There's no way to turn that off because this is basically running like Class A style where it's just constantly pulling power. And they advertise this as a feature. Now, there is some merit to this. I'll get into how this impacts sound. But basically, the power is not idling down like a lot of Class D amplification does. It's always consuming about 90 watts of power. Now, I have this hooked up to a watt meter right now. I checked the power because I was curious. I'm like, holy cow, that's a lot. I'm pulling 92.5 watts on a 120 volt outlet. That's a pretty high amount of power consumption, higher than most amp DACs I've reviewed. In fact, I have speaker amplifiers that pull less than that, even when I'm playing music. So the idea of that is by always actively drawing power, it's supposed to help with transients. And the second the music is very demanding of high current, you don't have to wait for the power to step up. It's already there. And that's why a lot of really high-end expensive stuff tends to go that path. It's a lot less power efficient, but it's in pursuit of the ultimate audio quality. So it does get warm after a while. I already feel some heat on the bottom and it hasn't been on long here at my desk. So that fan is necessary. I would not unplug it or disable it or cover it to reduce noise. It does get toasty inside. So I already mentioned the microphone support. On Windows, you do have to install a Burson audio driver for the microphone to work. Otherwise, the unit works without it. That's just if you need the mic to function. 3.5 millimeter output with the mic in. 6.3 millimeter out the SE single-ended. Now, at 32 ohms, this is 4 watts of output. On the higher, so there's two versions of the conductor. You have the 3GT and the 3X GT. The X stands for XLR. The 3GT is the same price and it drops the balanced output, but it doubles the power output of SE. So you're getting like 8 watts at 32 ohms or 10 watts at 16 ohms unbalanced. That's a ridiculous amount of power. It's so overkill, but I guess if you have something really hard to drive and you want to just use a 6.3 connection, maybe like a Sysvara or something, then that would be an option to consider. However, the XLR version of this is a true dual mono-stage amp circuitry inside, and this will get 10 watts at 16 ohm, 8 watts at 32 ohm, etc. It still puts out over 600 milliwatts at 300 ohms. So the power output of this thing is absolutely bonkers, and you can switch the gain because that's obviously a bit extreme. So let's go to the input. I want to show you how the interface works. And you can see some flickering just because of the way the screen is. But if I hit input here, you have all of these sources. It's just ridiculous how much you can select. Now, I've pretty much always used this as a USB DAC, but I did try other DACs on this because I wanted to do a lot of A/B comparisons to other amp DACs. So I just kept it simple for Windows side. So all you have to do to select your input is rotate it to the connection you want. Let's go to XLR2 and I'll hit enter and you'll hear a little click inside. There's the other one. I knew there was two. So now I'm on XLR2, and to go back, I'll just hit the input button again. And now I'm on my home screen, and there you see XLR2. And I'm set for headphone output. So let's hit the output stage. Now you have your standard DAC connection with headphone out. You have headphone plus subwoofer. I like that you can turn it on and off, because if you have a sub connected but don't always want to use the sub, you don't have to unplug it every time. You can just literally change the interface here to enable or disable the sub output. You have a pre-out, which is a 2 volt, 4 volt, depending on your connection, pre-out on the back, which will allow you to use the volume knob to adjust it in case you're using this for powered speakers. And then you have, or an external amplifier for speakers. Then you have DAC out, which will send it out at full volume. Be very careful doing this stuff if you're connected to external amps. Don't accidentally click DAC out. Luckily, it's a 2-step. So as I change it, I'm not actively changing the output. You have to select it, and then it'll switch. Now I'm going to go back to the standard headphone out, just in case I forget later. I'm going to tap this button again. Then I go to settings. Now there's a few things here on settings that are worth noting. So the gain level, low. This has a pretty weird volume stepping motor, to be honest. So it goes 0 to 100. Now 0 is mute. 1 is a lot louder than I would have liked. So this is not an amp DAC I recommend necessarily for very sensitive, expensive IEMs, in case you want to have lower listening volumes. The alternative to that, the solution to that, is to reduce the gain level on Windows. So if you reduce the output on the software side, that'll give you more flexibility here as far as the minimum volume goes. Now the way the volume stepping motor works, I'll show you in a minute, because there's more to touch on this. But again, just to change the gain level, I can just rotate the knob. It's funny, you actually have to turn it down to go to high and up to go to low. But I click it, and now I'm in high gain mode. So I'm going to go back to low, because I almost never need high gain. That's quite a bit of power. Now you have different filters, and what's really cool is they actually give you measurements of the roll-off and jitter performance of their filters on the manual. My personal preference, now the default it ships with is AP Fast for the default filter. Not a bad filter. I liked the MP Slow filter the most personally. It just sounded a little bit more intimate. It filled a little bit of something I thought it was lacking out of the box, but still got to benefit from what this does exceptional on the sound quality. Now DPLL is basically digital phase lock, and that's for DSD and PCM usage. I honestly don't use either enough to confidently say which one to pick, or I think this is one of those things where you should experiment on your own, but I tend to just leave it in the default setting. Emphasis is like a treble roll off of about 5 decibels, so if you feel like you need that, you can throw that on. And then the OLED level. So this is actually an important topic, because some other Burson units in the past, there was a little bit of noise if the OLED, I've seen people talk about this online. If you go to high, you're going to see the screen brighten up. I like it on high. I just wanted to show you the change. So this makes a little bit of noise that you can hear audibly for just a moment as it's switching, but then it gets quiet again, and I had no difference in noise whether the OLED was cranked to max brightness or not. Reset the unit, auto off is pretty self-explanatory, and then I'll go to settings. And then if you press this button, that's to change the orientation. So if you do buy the stand, all you have to do is tap it. It's an odd thing to have a dedicated button just for the orientation instead of putting it in settings. You know, maybe it would have been cool to, I don't know, have like a quick select or some programmable button. I don't know what I'd even put there in place of it, because you have your input out in settings anyway. So I guess it's just to make it easier. And then you have your volume control and press it into mute. Now the volume control has a lot of spinning. Let's go back to the standard orientation. So I want to show you something. So it's not like this is, you know, if you're at the 7 o'clock position, it's muted, and then all the way up here, all of a sudden it's at max. You have to spin this a lot. And I'm going to do it kind of slow because I want to show you how this volume wheel works. Mine is very consistent. You could see it's not really skipping or backtracking or anything like that. So I haven't had any issues. Now I've been using this for a couple months now. It's not like I just unboxed it and then did a video. Because I really wanted to make sure a unit this expensive is going to work the way it should, because it's not something cheap. It's usually people buy these because they want to have it for a long period of time. So let's talk about the volume performance. 0 is mute, 1 is noticeably louder. But then as you step up from there, the gains from like in volume from 1 to 10 is very, very little, in 10 to 20, etc. So you're spinning the wheel a lot to go from a low volume to a higher volume. Now the remote is nice and consistent, and I'll just show you how fast it steps up with the remote just so you can see it. It's all digital, so it's pretty fast. Now just to show you something, I can flick this like really quick. It's smooth, but there's not a lot of resistance to it. It kind of glides. So you can keep up with the remote increase, and then you can see right here it's changing pretty quickly. So it's not bad, but just don't expect, like, because it has this much output, going from the volume level of 5 to 30 is going to be a massive swing in power. It does get louder, but that 0 to 1 is the most noticeable change. So I want to talk about sound quality while the amp cools down, because it's been on for a bit, and I want to take this apart to show you the inside. So the Grand Tour, the 3X GT, what did I like about it? It's super energetic, and not in a grainy and abrasive way. The combination, so when I used other Burson products or other products where I could swap the op amps, switching to the V6 Vivid definitely wakes up the sound. It's almost like adding a shot of caffeine to all of your music. It's not drastically changing everything, but it makes it sound more energetic. And that carried over with the 3X GT. Now, I lost, because the soundstage is a little bit more vast with this, which is honestly hard for me to say because I typically don't believe that amp DACs can drastically change the stage of headphones, which when compared to speakers don't have massive stage. But it was noticeable. Like, I have a lot of amp DACs. I have some of them over there. I have the new Niche DAC amp or amplifier. That's a great amp. This is 2800. I'll do some more comparisons to this soon. But I've tried a lot of different things, and it's really hard to blind test something like this because of how you have to switch the sources. So I couldn't fully do a blind test, but it was noticeable that things just sounded a little bit wider. There's a new album from James Blake that has like more ambient stuff to it, and it's just ridiculous when you hear the soundscapes and how wide they get. So I'll have a picture so you can see, you know, which song I'm talking about, because it's really fun to listen to on something like this. The bass delivery is incredibly fast. It's very, very tight. The vocals on this amp compared to some of my others, they're very transparent, of course. It's a clean amp. This isn't drastically coloring the sound. So it's an easier thing to explain because as I've reviewed more audio equipment, I learned more about this stuff. The noticeable things that stand out for noise floor is the fan. On the sound quality side, everything just sounds a little bit more energetic, yet it's still somehow very smooth. It's not grainy or abrasive or brittle sounding, while also getting way more expanse on the right tracks. Now, if you don't need that, play with the emphasis filter. Maybe choose a different filter that has different higher frequency performance. Like I said, I like that slow one a lot. So I paired it with a few things. This is funny. So this is the HiFiMan HER9. It's a bassy, somewhat poor resolving headphone that launched at a higher price, but now sells on Amazon for like, I think it's $100, $120. I'm not a huge fan of this by itself because I think it needs a lot of EQ, and it doesn't fix all the flaws with EQ. However, the way that sounded with this was just insane. And I'm not recommending buy this so you can buy a $100 headphone. Not a lot of people are doing that. But if you have a bunch of headphones and you want something fun, a little bit of EQ with this, I was like, holy cow, this is way more enjoyable than I expected. Where it pairs well and does not pair well. So the ZMF Caldera, because this has a low output impedance, tons of power, really fast transients, it's going to make the Caldera super resolving. This is a $4,000 planar magnetic headphone. That's my own, and I absolutely love that headphone. And it's a good pairing with this if you're seeking the utmost resolution and stage and energy with your music without punishing you. That's the fine line that the Conductor 3X GT walks really well. When I listen to on the HD6XX, I don't think you're gaining as much of what this can do on something like a Sennheiser 6XO line, the 650XX and the 600. Not a bad pairing, but it didn't really do anything too special to me. I noticed a bigger change on tube amps or something warmer sounding. The fun, to me, aside from the HiFiMan products, I really like the Meze Elite and Empyrean on this. I think they just, because they have a little bit more warmth to it, it's filling in the intimacy that I don't feel I get as much on the Burson, simply because of that detail and attack and stage. that I get on the upper end. The attack is super noticeable. So if you like clap, it seems like everyone's just clapping faster and a little bit harder. You know, like those types of sounds are so quick. So the attack and decay is excellent as well. Some of these traits, remember, not all of this is a pro for everybody. People look for attack and decay, but it can come across as unnatural to some depending on the track and what headphone you're listening to. So it's important just to know what you're getting and pairing it with the right setup. I think that the Conductor 3X GT with Meze products and warmer sounding dynamic headphones are a great combination, whereas something that's really resolving and fast, I don't have them out right now. Actually, it's on my wall. I'll reach for it. You know, if you look at something like the Hi-Fi-Man HE 1000 SE or the Aria Stealth or the Aria Air, sorry, I call it the Air. That's leading into something down the road. So the Aria Organic has even more treble extension than the Aria Stealth. I wanted them to call it the Air because of all that air presence. It's a good headphone, but I think it's a little much with this because it's so fast and transparent. If you're seeking the utmost detail, then yes, look at something like a Hi-Fi-Man Planar with this and you will hear everything. You'll probably hear fingernails growing with that setup. But you can turn on the emphasis filter or try a different filter to tone it down if you already have those and you just want one amp for everything. But it's very dynamic, very transparent, and again, it's very eager to deliver fast-paced music. And I almost forgot, on the gaming side, the VZR Model 1 was such a fun pairing because this is a very warm, punchy, bass-heavy headset. It also has very strong passive noise isolation, so you don't really hear much around you. Great combination with this because this is bringing you this like super aggressive detailed presentation and stage on a closed back gaming headset with a lot of bass and a mic that you can plug into this. It was such a fun combo. I can see people that are into gaming but then also have their flagship headphones and they want a single amp DAC. This is like a very unique niche product, but oh my god, when you pair them together, it was just ridiculous. Now, real quick, the DSHA. This guy is new. It's $2,800. It has no DAC. It's only a balanced output. Completely different sound presentation. This still has a really good stage presence, but not as hyper detailed and energetic as the Burson Conductor. This sacrifices some of that and gives you a little bit more warmth and intimacy in the mid-range. It's almost like the vocals are just a tad more comforting to hear on something like this. So you have a different presentation. I'm really condensing this a lot because I don't want the video to get crazy long. Very different sound though, and obviously this has a lot less features. It's really just an amplifier, so you still need to use a DAC anyway. On the note of the DAC real quick, when you use analog connections on this, it's not analog pass-through straight to the amp because of how it's built. All of the connections will go through the DAC and get upscale or converted to digital before it gets back to analog. So it's kind of an interesting quirk. So you won't really hear massive differences with external DACs. It'll all roll into that and utilize the sound that this is applying to the music. All right, so I'm going to take it apart real quick and show you the inside of the unit. Now, there are 4 screws on the bottom. I have this little electronic drill, but it's not the most powerful. And some of these screws are tighter than others. So I'm just going to take these out. You're going to have these like brass posts, like this giant hex nut, if you will. That's just to make sure this anchors properly once it's screwed in all the way. All right, so once you've removed all the screws, hold it like this so you don't accidentally pop the lid off. Flip the entire unit around, and then the whole lid just comes up and off just like that. Now you can see the inside. Now I'm not going to spend too much time talking about every component. I just wanted you to see it. Feel free to pause, take a picture, zoom in. But I wanted to show you the op amp layout. These back ones are your IV stage, and this is your LP stage, or low pass. The IV is basically where your op amps are converting from the DAC to the output signal for your amplification circuitry. And then your LP is your low pass. That's the final output stage going into the amps or where it cleans up the mix. The most impactful change you'll get on sound quality if you want to mess around with switching op amps are these two. And these are dual op amps, not singles. So make sure you get the appropriate kind. It calls this out in the manual, and then this side is the left channel and this is the right channel, I believe. It's kind of weird because I'm upside down. It won't matter because you have to change them in pairs anyway. You're not going to replace only one side at a time. But basically it's these two, and then these 4. And the manual will call that out. Every little Bluetooth antenna wire. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, if you're a circuit designer, then you're going to be more interested in this than a lot of other people. But I did want to show you the inside layout and how that's put together and which op amps to change. All right, so that about wraps up the video, and I want to end with this. This is not going to be perfect for everybody. That's normal. When you get into flagship products, it's executing that brand's vision on feature sets, sound quality, performance, design, connectivity. All of that gets very specific as you get into the very high end. So with that one thing alone, not everyone's going to want the same product. And that's okay. So again, just to summarize, this has tons of inputs and outputs. It has that subwoofer switch that you can do, which some people are going to love. I wouldn't recommend this for IEM listeners out there just because that 0 to 1 step is super aggressive. And I wish they had, I wish the 1 was a third as loud as it is, frankly, maybe even less, just to have a more linear progression to max. So it's not perfect, but it works really well. And like I said, the energy and stage, while still remaining smooth, that's really the technical feat that this has, is getting out as much detail and visceralness as you can from the music without making it grainy or harsh or abrasive. So that's kind of a really cool feature. And if you find that to be a little bit too forward, just switch out to the classic op amps, which are, you know, under $150. Switch that on the LP stage and you have a different sound profile. I really liked it with warmer headphones, and I liked it with the Meze Elite. So yeah, that about wraps it up. Hopefully you liked what you see. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you at the next video. And with that being said, I'll see you next time. Bye.